Vancouver Hockey Show. It's the VHS. Andrew Wadden alongside producer Aaron. And Aaron, this is one of those weekends where, boy, if you're a sports junkie like myself, you are craving for a fix. Not really getting a whole lot. There's nothing happening. Of course, the All-Star game done and dusted as we record this. And
oh, All-Star? Really?
Yeah.
Somebody told me about it, but yeah, okay, right.
Listen, I watched it for you. So if you are listening to this podcast.
I did watch the skills. I watched the skills,
okay.
and that was good.
All right. Well, today, with no hockey, I do not subject myself to the Pro Bowl. I can't. And now it's flag football. To be honest with you, it's probably better that it's flag, but I'm still not. I am deprived of PGA Tour today. So I watched Live Golf, the final round, and I don't even know where the hell they are. I've just been watching it. But yeah, that's what the depths we will go as sports junkies to try to get our fix today, watching Live Golf.
Although, do you know somebody who has subjected themselves to watching Live Golf? Yeah. Call now.
Exactly.
We're here to help.
The shorts are hokey. Like I can't get over the shorts. I also find it better if it's muted because some of the holes there's music playing, and I don't want to sound like an old crusty guy. I just when I'm watching golf, I don't want to hear music.
No, I want to hear the broadcaster piping in the wrong bird song for where they are in the country,
Birds aren't even in this area. What the hell is this? I was going to give a bird's name. I couldn't pull one out besides a blue jay or a cardinal. I'm sure they're all over the place. Regardless, though, I don't think you tuned into this podcast to hear me whining about golf. I will fill you in on the All-Star weekend. So let's rewind the week as we do here. And of course, it was the bye week for the Vancouver Canucks. And we did have that emergency podcast surrounding the Lindholm trade with the Calgary Flames. If you missed that, check it out. It's available on all our podcast platforms, also sportshouse.ca. It was myself and JD Burke. And we kind of just broke down that trade. I really wanted to, get JD's opinion on the prospects that were headed to Calgary. As I mentioned on the pod, I felt like, if the trade was just Lindholm and a first and Kuzmenko, then that would be a big win for the Canucks in many different ways. You get Lindholm, the player, who's a better player. You get off the contract of Kuzmenko. That first round pick is going to be high 20s, all stuff that we broke down already. But there was, perhaps the risk that, and I think I'm going to butcher the name, Brustovich could turn out to be an NHL player, and there still is. But just going by what JD had said about the player in itself, sounds like Canucks might have done a nice piece of business there, but time will tell. But let's get to that All-Star game. You said that you watched the skills. Did you watch the draft, though?
No, I did not watch the draft. Only caught the skills.
I didn't mind the draft. I got to say, I didn't mind the draft. I mean, it was chock full of NHL hokiness, whether it's, mics cutting out, which just seems to be an NHL presentation sort of thing, ragging the puck, as they say, between, draft picks and whatnot, David Amber trying to be funny. And don't get me wrong, like I'm not dissing those guys at all. They have a tough job. It's not easy to do. And in fact, I thought they did an okay job of it. But I liked the draft. There was just a couple of things I didn't like. And one of them was the fact that it was very hockey. You know what I mean? Like I thought it would have been cool if the Hughes' team didn't pick all Canucks or, Matthews' team didn't pick all Leafs. Like, really throw it for a curveball. Although the new Canuck, Elias Lindholm, did not end up on Team Hughes, but for the most part, it was very hockey, keep it, nothing too controversial. And then of course, with the last picks, instead of doing the Phil Kessel where you hung him out to dry, and there's definitely some humor involved in that, but I think they understood that it was an embarrassing moment for Phil Kessel. So this time around, when they did the draft, they did the last, 4 players, and they were able to just get their envelope and basically be on a team. So in that regard, I thought things worked out pretty well for the NHL. The skills event was good. I gotta admit, it was. It's better than the costumes, and again, I'm going to use this word hokey once again, but just the hokiness of what it used to be and what it became, I guess you could say. Yep. I like
the energy was up between stuff. Like the flow of the night was really good considering.
Yeah, and keeping it in a Canucks angle, Team Hughes didn't do very well. Miller was the only one that advanced to the final. Petey wasn't able to defend his hardest shot. McDavid won it in the end, which is like, surprise, obviously Connor McDavid won the skills competition in the NHL. I joked that in other news, the Harlem Globetrotters beat the Washington Generals. Because that's what it felt like, right?
Yeah.
I loved that Nikita Kucherov just did not give two blanks about any of the events at all. He scored half a point in the entire event.
He got a participation award. Yeah.
I think he sort of, made his point there. Like, listen, I'm an old dog. I don't want to be doing these tricks for you guys anymore. All right. So take Nikita Kucherov's name out of the hat, I think, for next year. But yeah, like I mentioned, it was better than I anticipated. So I have to give the NHL props for that. And then they had the celebrities as well with each team. And that's going back to the draft. That was kind of cool. Although Biebs is just acting like he was too cool for school. Like, and I love that Bublé was getting involved in it. Maybe a little too much on Bublé's part. He was pretty funny. I don't know if you saw that microdose comment he made about being perhaps on mushrooms. That was pretty funny. Again, I think Bublé maybe might have wanted to dial it back a little bit, but yeah, for the most part, I thought it was pretty good. Will Arnett was funny as well. Okay, so Team Hughes lost. Let's keep it in a Canucks perspective here. I watched the entire thing. I gotta admit, it was okay, actually. Like, the 3-on-3 was the goaltending was fantastic. And as an ex-goalie myself, I was thinking about it, like, that'd be fun to play in. Like, you could potentially get lit up pretty good, but there's a lot of action coming at you. Team Hughes lost 6-5 in a shootout to Team Matthews. JT missed in the, or could have extended the shootout. He missed it to keep it going. One part of the game that was funny, you said you didn't watch it at all?
Nope.
So Rick Tocchet called his shot twice in a row on who was going to score for his team. He called Brady Tkachuk. He was on the bench doing an interview, and had Gretzky beside him, which was really cool to see Wayne Gretzky hanging out with Rick Tocchet. I'm sure that was quite the buzz for the players as well.
Mm-hmm.
But Tocchet was asked, all right, well, I think they were down at the time, and I believe they were down and they had to tie it to extend it to overtime. Again, it's the All-Star game, so bear with me here if I'm not all that focused on it. But Tocchet was asked, who's going to score? He says Tkachuk. Boom, Brady Tkachuk scores. Then he asked again, all right, who's going to check? Vetrano. Yeah, Vetrano scores. So that was kind of cool. Quinn Hughes had 3 assists in the game, which I was looking at because I'm a degenerate and I had to bet him. At 40, he was 41-1 odds to win the MVP. And I was like, Quinn seems like the kind of guy that this sort of thing would be important to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, screw it. $10, a chance to win 400. Like, why not? Right. It didn't work out for me, obviously.
Right. Well, that's pretty cool that Rick Tocchet did an old Mike Blowers there and just, called it there,
Yeah.
So.
In the end, Matthews' team beats McDavid. Matthews gets MVP. I mean, the whole thing was really predictable in the end.
Yeah.
Kind of, right? McDavid wins the skills. Matthews' team wins it. Matthews gets MVP. I actually thought Philip Forsberg should have got MVP. I thought he was pretty damn good. So was Igor Shesterkin as well. But so there's your all-star wrap for this weekend. I watched it, so you didn't have to. Okay, so let's go back in time just a little bit, back to the Elias Lindholm trade, that is.
We're going to have fun with this.
Yeah, I know.
Aren't we?
I know. Well, I told you about Eastern media. Just for some reason, Elias Pettersson is Elias Pettersson, like after you, I guess, get into Alberta, really. So maybe they're not going to have a problem with it. We certainly will, because I want to pronounce his name properly.
Mm-hmm.
But the just almost did it again. The Elias Lindholm trade. Let's just sort of dig into that one just a little bit more. As I mentioned, potentially could be a home run for the Canucks when you really sort of flesh it out. Because if those two prospects in Brustevich and Yermo, like if they don't turn out to be a whole lot, then you're really only looking at that first round pick being potentially something that could bite you in the ass in the end. Because, I mean, as much as I like Andrei Kuzmenko, I like him on a personal level, there are definitely some warts to his game. And if you're getting healthy scratched after scoring close to 40 goals in essentially your rookie season, but your first season in the NHL, like, I mean, that's saying a lot. So, do I think Kuzmenko can stick around in the NHL? Yes, I do. Do I think that the Canucks are worried about losing him? No, I don't. And in fact, I think that they're happy about being able to open up that cap space. But that brings me to Lindholm and his future here, because Rutherford was on with Donnie and Dolly, and he stated that, yeah, like they understand that this could be a rental, but the preference, and again, I'm paraphrasing here, but the preference would be to sign Lindholm long-term. But like, there's a lot of moving parts that, have to be able to allow that to even be something. Like JD talked about the fact that Lindholm was asking for close to $9 million. Now, is Lindholm a $9 million player? I don't think so. I mean, the guy averages under 60 points for his career a season. Now, he had a bit of a slow start to his career, but he's also had he's had one distinct outlier season where he had 82 points and I believe it was 42 goals that year. So is he worth $9 million? Well, I guess the market would sort of dictate that, especially if he goes to market. But let's look in reality at the Canucks offseason for just a moment here. 11 roster spots to fill. So 2 RFAs, 9 UFAs. The RFAs being Petey and Hronek, who are going to get significant raises. The OEL buyout jumps from $150K this year to $2.3 million. For the next 2 years, it climbs again after that. But with the cap progressing, those numbers don't hurt quite as much. So the cap is expected to be up somewhere around $4 million next year from 83 to 87 million. So if Lindholm is perhaps in the future plans for the Vancouver Canucks, there is going to have to be some significant money going out the door. And I have got Ilya Mikheyev. I'm sorry. And I say it every week. I know it's your boy.
Again.
It's more of a joke, I think, more than anything else right now, because I don't know if you can say that with confidence.
We used to be friends. We're more acquaintances now. Yeah.
You guys had a falling out.
Yeah.
But I mean, with the sort of lack of production that we're seeing from Ilya Mikheyev, now I know it's not all about points with Mikheyev at times, but that knee injury was significant for him. And we have seen, I don't know if we've seen the Ilya Mikheyev, speed that we were sold when he was coming over here from Toronto. He's got 2 years left after this year at $4.75 million. Like, that is a significant chunk of change for the Canucks to be able to work with. That is basically the same contract that Elias, there we go again, Lindholm is on right now. Now, his was signed 6 years ago, I believe. So there's clearly a difference in terms of the market. But if you are going to flirt with the idea of signing Lindholm, like, you're going to have to make significant moves and you're going to have to shed some salary. I would mention Connor Garland's name there, but I think Connor Garland has played his way into being, I don't know if he's an untouchable, might be a bit of a stretch, but kind of feels that way right now. Coach loves him.
Started the season, they're like, oh, let's trade this guy, right? And then
absolutely. Well, he was even, right? Yeah. Like, they were, hey, you can go explore a trade. Now, how much demand there would be for him on the market, I don't know right now, because, Connor Garland is sort of unique to his situation at the moment.
He's found his groove on that line.
100%.
So,
yeah. He's found the chemistry with Bluger and Joshua. And yeah, it might be one of those, a misfit sort of lines, but they found the chemistry. So, whatever Connor Garland is right now, I just don't think the Canucks can afford to lose a player like that. But someone like Mikheyev, like, as this team, tries to win a Stanley Cup, because let's be honest, that's literally what they're trying to do this year. Like, they have the pieces. I don't think they're done. But if you are going to, move out Mikheyev, like, I don't think that necessarily, makes you step back, so to speak. Like, you could fill that hole. We've talked about guys like Anthony Duclair. Again, I'll bring his name up once again. It just seems like the dollars would fit there. Could you convince, Seattle to do a trade with you? And maybe you bring in somebody like Eberle. There's names out there. Tarasenko in Ottawa, again, there would have to be, some cap sort of commitments, whether it's eating salary on one end or whatever. You have to make the dollars work. But, you get an expiring contract, fill that void in that top six that Ilya Mikheyev's in right now. And then when you get into the offseason, you have different options to be able to work with. Perhaps maybe that option will allow you to re-sign Lindholm. Okay, big news coming out of the All-Star weekend. NHL players, Aaron, returning to the Olympics in 2026 and 2030. They're committed for the next two. But also, this is pretty cool. Going down next February, literally a week from now, next February, we will get a 4 nations face-off between the best on best between Canada, United States, Sweden, and Finland. And of course, want to keep this in a Canucks perspective, they don't have any Canadians that'll be on the team. They just don't. They don't have any Finns that'll be on the team. So the US and Sweden will be well represented by the Vancouver Canucks. Thatcher Demko, Quinn Hughes, Brock Besser, JT Miller, all expected to be on Team USA. And then on Sweden, Petey and Lindholm. They're expected to be on the team as well. But what about with the U.S. team? Brought up his name just a moment ago. Connor Garland. Like, I'm not saying he'd make the team. Would he get an invite to camp? Dakota Joshua? Does he get just an invite? You know, because like Hockey Canada used to love to do that back in the day. Bring in guys, you know, inflate the ego a little bit, you know, get them feeling welcome by Team Canada. Never going to make the team. No. Oh, God, no. You're never going to make the team. But we'll have you at camp. Make you feel good about yourself. Put that USA on your chest if you're Dakota Joshua or Connor Garland. I think that would be kind of interesting.
Please accept this rose.
Exactly. Demko is an interesting debate as well. You got Hellebuck, Demko, Ottinger.
Ooh.
Like, the U.S. is stacked in goal. Like, could one of those guys perhaps just play for Canada? Could we take Demko?
We got to find some lineage here somewhere in the bloodline.
Got to find it. You know, Thatcher and
just our luck. It'll turn out that Thatcher Demko's grandfather's Finnish or something, right? And then, like, you know.
Well, I mean, listen, Demko or Hellebuck, they both play in Canada. I mean, you know, they live here a lot of time of the year. Maybe perhaps we could have one of them. I mean, there's only one
dog.
net.
Demko has a Canadian dog. There you go. That's the qualifier.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's only one net. So, you know, Hellebuck and Demko can't be in the same net. Anyway, curious about Höglander too. I talk about getting invites. I think Höglander's a long shot to make Sweden, but could he, you know, get himself an invite into the camp? Again, that would be something if you're Nils Höglander, you'd be pretty excited about. We'll dig into Olympic raw. I feel like it's too early to start doing the Olympic sort of projections right now. Like 2026, you know, let's just use a name.
First off, you got to be healthy. And so who knows?
Yeah, but also too, like, what's Adam Fantilli going to be in 2026? Right? Like, what are some of these youngsters that are just coming up? And I'm just to use him as an example. I think we all agree, and all by being you and I, that Connor Bedard will be on that team.
Oh, yeah.
I want to see a line of McDavid, Crosby, Bedard.
Ooh.
Just the generational players.
Yeah, just hang in there a few more years, Crosby.
Oh, Crosby's going to be on that team. 100%. Crosby's not going anywhere. You see the way he's playing this year? I mean, he still looks fantastic. Like, Sid's going to be on, well, Sid will be on that Nations team. And I think that the Four Nations team, I think Bedard will be on that team as well next year.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Fantilli, no. Again, just using him as an example. Good young player, Canadian, probably will be wearing the red and white in his career at some point. But yeah, we'll do the Olympic thing a little bit later. We can do some projections, maybe bring some people on to give us theirs as well.
We'll need stuff to talk about in the summer.
Well, that is true too. We'll talk about this in the summer because each team's going to announce their first 6 players this summer. And the final roster announcements will be coming later in the year. I believe I saw a tweet about it. You have to be on an NHL roster by December 2nd, which is the NHL rules anyway when it comes to RFAs and whatnot. So yeah, there you have it. Each team going to announce 6 players this summer. Wonder if Petey and Lindholm are the first 6 announced for Sweden. Also, too, with that Team USA, the way it's stacked to, you got to figure Hughes is probably going to be in the top 6. We'll see, though, this summer, and we'll talk about it then. Okay, lastly, before we get out of here, Aaron, I do want to just sort of take a look around the league a little bit because there's been some big league news this week. And as mentioned with the Olympics and the Four Nations and just best on best, finally blessed with that. We need more of that. So I'm very excited about that news. But in the NHL, like a major firing in the Pacific Division, as well as the LA Kings let go of head coach Todd McClellan. You know, they won 11 straight road games to start the season, which was wild. And you see the Kings and you're sitting there thinking to yourself like, hey, this team's starting to prove itself because they did, took a couple of years and sort of retooled on the fly and were able to do it quite well, actually. But since that 11 straight road games to start the season, since then they've been 4-6-4 on the road. They've been awful though since the end of December. They had an 8-game winless stretch where they got 4 of 16 points. That's gross. So they fall into the first wildcard spot as we record this, but 4.5 seasons with the Kings, McClellan, a .550 points percentage. He made the playoffs the last 2 seasons, but the first 2 seasons, they were really just coming out of that rebuild/retool. So he's done some good stuff in LA, but as we've seen, like when teams start to dip, the only thing that, teams can really do nowadays is fire the head coach. There's really no other way to sort of change things. You can look at guys like Pierre-Luc Dubois, who forced his way into a trade out of Winnipeg, and, good pieces going from LA to Winnipeg. And Dubois got 20 points this year. Is that Todd McLellan's fault? He got a team save percentage of .908, which, you probably sit there and go, not that bad. Yeah, but it's propped up by David Rittich. Big Save Dave, or No Save Dave, as he's been known in the past. He's got a .924 save percentage over his last 9 games. So really, you subtract that, it's gross, that team save percentage. So McLellan gets the axe, but really in the end, it's on the players. And I'm wondering if, what it's going to be like for the Kings coming through the rest of this season. I know, Doughty's been vocal about, things being, or players sort of, being off in that dressing room. So the reason why I bring this up, though, is because these are good problems for the Canucks, right? Have teams in your own division, sort of having their own problems, where the Canucks can just sit there and go, all right, well, we're going to do our thing. Speaking of the Jets, too, they picked up Sean Monahan in a trade. And the reason why I bring them up is because, they're probably looking over their shoulder going, all right, well, Vancouver did this. We got to do that. Because they mean business right now, the Jets. And Montreal with a pretty tidy piece of business themselves, being able to pick up another first rounder because they're able to get one by taking Monahan, that is, off the hands of the Calgary Flames. They get a conditional third rounder, which will be if the Jets, I don't know if I can't remember if it was win or make it to the Stanley Cup. It's one or the other. But, you look at the Canucks down the middle right now, and depending on, how things shake out for the Canucks, you could say the Canucks have, Pettersson, Miller, Lindholm down the middle, maybe in Suter as well, or Blucher, I guess. But that's not the way it's going to shake out. PD is going to play wing probably, or Lindholm is good. I would assume Lindholm will probably play wing with PD. But, the Canucks have some depth when it comes to center ice. But how about the Jets, though? Scheifele, Monahan, Lowry, Nemesnikov down the middle. The Jets have beefed up. And also, too, I know a lot of people talk about the Canucks blue line and, how the snarl and size really that they've sort of added this year. Take a look at the Jets. They got it, too. So, hey, would be a pretty cool collision course if the Jets and the Canucks were to meet in the playoffs. I do wonder, though, is Rutherford done right now? As we mentioned,
oh no,
exactly, right?
They got at least one more.
Yeah, and it's a big one too, though. That's the thing. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, everybody thinks the Lindholm one was the big one. Nah.
No, I disagree with that. No, the biggest one was the Lindholm. They're not going to get any bigger than that. There's not a player available that's bigger than Lindholm. Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Well, no,
Jake
but
Guentzel.
I mean, do you get 2 guys? Do you get 2 guys on the next one?
I think you're getting greedy there, Aaron.
No.
I'm looking for more of a sort of lateral shift, like I mentioned earlier, like a Mikheyev for a Duclair, or a Mikheyev for a Tarasenko, or you know what I mean? Like somebody that can come in here on an expiring, that can produce, play in that top 6, but then allows you to get off the contract that is Ilya Mikheyev. And funny enough, as I actually mentioned those 2 players, and I sort of I'm looking at a list right now, I'm really fixated on Anthony Duclair. I know you guys are probably like, Wadden, give it a rest. But he just seems like the kind of player that would fit here, and just with the cap and all that. But San Jose could be one of those teams because of the fact that they can afford to absorb some cap right now and some future cap as well. With a contract like Mikheyev's. Ottawa, though, has stated they're a complete long shot right now to make the playoffs. But they stated, with this new regime that they've got in there, new ownership, Steve Stais, Dave Poulin, all these new guys that are up in the front office there, that they've stated that they want NHL veteran players to come in there. And it's a good, there was talk that Chris Tanev, that they're going after Chris Tanev. If you're Chris Tanev, you're probably sitting there going, why would I want to go to Ottawa right at this point in my career? But someone like Mikheyev could be somebody that Ottawa could be looking at, that veteran players, not too old, could fit well with those young players, got a bit of term left. And Tarasenko, he's mid 32 years old right now. He's on and expiring. So, maybe Tarasenko could be that player. Again, maybe there's others that I'm not thinking of right now. As I just scour this list, Tyler Toffoli's name's on there. Remember Tyler Toffoli? He loved his time here in Vancouver. I just think that Rutherford, if they are going to make a move, and, if you suggest that it could be even bigger than Lindholm, holy, brace yourself. I'd love to see what that could be. But I feel like if they are going to do another move, it would be sort of that lateral move where you could get a player that's equal to what Mikheyev can give to you, but then you get out from underneath those dollars. So schedule ahead for the Canucks. A 5-game road trip is going to kick off on Tuesday in Carolina. As we record this, the poor guys are out on the ice right now in Carolina. A 6 p.m. Eastern Sunday after your bye week and or All-Star weekend practice. Aaron, that has got, woo! There's going to be some booze coming out of those pores in this one. Holy.
But like, if you're Petey, Miller, Hughes, Demko, you're just like, man, the other guys are like, hey man, the beaches were really good in Puerto Rico. Like, where were you guys? Oh, Toronto.
Yeah, Toronto. Yeah. It looked like it was a good time. A 6 o'clock Eastern sweat it out on a Sunday. And honestly, maybe that's a veteran move from Rick Tocchet, right? He's been there. He's done that. He knows I got to get my boys ready. And especially with what's ahead for them. Bit of news, too, did come out of this practice. Our boy, Thomas Drance, tweeting, Phil Di Giuseppe takes the ice at Canucks practice. He says it looks set based on jersey color, 4th line red to skate with the full group at practice. This evening, veteran winger hasn't played with the club, since January 2nd. So thanks to Drancer for that piece of information there. And that's good news for PDG fans. Yeah, let's get out of here and look forward to a big week ahead for the Canucks. As mentioned, those 4 games, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we'll rewind it all on the next edition of the VHS. Thanks for listening, everyone.